I was pouring coffee into my travel mug when Ryder stormed into the kitchen, his cleats dangling from one hand, his duffel bag thumping against his leg like he owned the whole house. He did, in a way. That was how it had always felt. "Cass?" he barked. "You need to cancel that appointment and drive me to Colorado Springs. Coach said I have to be there by noon." I kept the mug steady. "I'm not canceling anything." Ryder froze, like the word itself offended him. He tugged one AirPod out and stepped closer. "What did you just say I waited 7 months for that biopsy?" I said, "I am going." He laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Do you hear yourself? This is Top West National. Scouts from every major league team are flying in. My shot is now, and my health is now," I said quietly. Mom appeared in the doorway with her phone, already opened to Ryder's flight confirmation. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. They both looked at me like I was making a scene. Ryder's voice dropped into that cold, ugly register he used only when he felt challenged. "Get the keys. We are leaving." No, that one syllable hung in the air long enough to change everything in the room. Dad didn't blink. Mom didn't either. Ryder stepped forward, close enough that I could smell the synthetic cherry scent of the pre-workout powder he lived on. His hand moved before I even registered the shift in his shoulders. The slap cracked across my cheek like a breaking branch. My back slammed into the counter. Coffee splashed across the laminate and onto the floor. The left side of my face burned, then went numb. I heard Ryder inhale, ready to shout something else, but Dad cut him off with a flat, merciless line. "His future matters," he said. "Yours never did." It stunned me more than the slap. Mom did not even look at me. She fussed with Ryder's boarding pass like nothing had happened. The kitchen felt suddenly hollow. I pushed myself upright, tasted blood, and set the mug down even though my hand was shaking. No one moved to help me. No one moved at all. I walked past them without speaking. Upstairs. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed in jeans, shirts, toiletries, the thin folder of medical papers I had guarded for months, and the envelope of emergency cash I kept hidden in my sock drawer. 16 minutes. That was how long it took to pack the pieces of my life. When I came back down, Ryder was still ranting in the garage. Dad stared at his truck. Mom held out Ryder's shaker bottle like an offering. None of them asked where I was going. I opened the front door. The morning air was cold enough to sting the fresh bruise. "Behind me!" Ryder shouted. "Cass! What the hell are you doing? I didn't turn around." As the door clicked shut, a small, final sound that felt louder than the slap. I thought about how many people live entire lives without getting to choose themselves even once. If anyone listening has ever felt like that, like a background character in your own home, I hope you stay with me for what comes next. I stepped into the pale Colorado morning and kept walking. I grew up hearing baseballs hit netting instead of lullabies. Some kids fell asleep to bedtime stories. I fell asleep counting the thuds above my head in the basement 1, 2, 3 until the lights in the backyard finally cut out. Dad used to say, "Ryder's arm is our ticket out of this town." He never said what I was. When I was 15, Coach Maddox showed up 3 nights a week, always with a lifted truck and a fresh warm-up jacket from whatever team he claimed he had connections to. Ryder would sprint out the back door, shouting, "Watch this one. Cass," and I always did. Not because he asked, but because there was no other option. If I stayed in the kitchen, Mom said I made her nervous. If I stayed in the basement, the thudding shook dust from the ceiling. I remember one night in particular. Ryder was 14, pale under the backyard floodlights. I heard gagging and went outside to find him hunched behind the batting tunnel, hands braced on his knees. "You okay?" I asked. He wiped his mouth and glared at me, embarrassed. "Dad said if I choke this weekend, it's over." I crouched beside him. "He shouldn't say that. You don't understand," he muttered. "You don't have to prove anything." I almost laughed. If only he knew how many times I'd held my breath in front of our parents, hoping they'd notice I existed. Inside, Mom and Dad were arguing about money again, travel costs, hotel fees, showcase registrations. Words floated through the screen door: investment, future, sacrifice. They were sacrifices I made too, but no one said that part out loud. There were moments when Ryder seemed to soften, like he wanted to apologize for the pressure he carried, but they never lasted. Whenever Dad barked his name, Ryder snapped back into the golden child mold the family carved for him. By the time I finished high school, everything revolved around him: weekends, conversations, even the layout of our house. I slept in the basement because my old room had been converted into Ryder's recovery space. When I asked Mom where I was supposed to put my things, she said, "Cassidy, please, your brother needs focus. You can manage for now." For now became years. I learned to be the quiet one, the helper, the girl who made herself small so Ryder's dreams could stay big. And after a while, shrinking didn't feel like a choice at all. The lump showed up a few weeks after my 26th birthday. Hard, unmoving, a little bigger every time I brushed my fingers along my jaw. The local clinic sent me to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. The specialist sent me to oncology in Boulder. Every office had the same weary tone. Earliest biopsy slot is months out, 7 months and 3 weeks. If you want the first opening, I took it. I marked the date in my phone in red, my first red event ever. Ryder's schedule covered entire walls in red marker. Mine finally had a single square. For almost 8 months. Not once did anyone ask how I was doing. Mom only called when a travel fee was due. Dad texted whenever Ryder needed a ride to Denver or Colorado Springs because rideshare drivers are unreliable. I paid for Gatorade packs, protein tubs, and last-minute tournament costs because if I hesitated, Mom sighed and said, "Cassidy, please, don't make this difficult." But the lump kept growing. Some mornings I woke with a strange ache where my tongue met my throat. I kept imagining all the ways a diagnosis could split my life open, and no one in that house noticed. The night before my appointment, I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through the confirmation email. Ryder burst through the door with his usual victory swagger. "Cass," he said, "I have to be in Phoenix by noon on Saturday. Coach wants me at the cage early. You're driving." I kept my eyes on my phone. "I have my biopsy." He laughed like I had said something cute. "Move it. You always move stuff. For this I won't." He stopped. The room felt smaller. "You know how big this weekend is. And you know how long I've waited." My voice barely rose, but something in it pushed back against years of shrinking. Later that night, alone in the basement, I whispered it to myself again. This day is mine. I had no idea that choosing one day, just one, would tear everything else apart. By the time I reached Boulder Community Foothills, the bruise on my face had gone from bright red to a muted, sickening purple. I checked in, sat down, and kept my eyes on the floor. The waiting room hummed with quiet conversations, older patients, a few families, a teenage boy gripping his mother's hand so tightly his knuckles were white. When the nurse called my name, she blinked at my face but kept her voice warm. "This way, Cassidy." Inside the exam room, Dr. Tessa Ridley waited with a clipboard. She looked younger than most oncologists I had met, but her presence felt firm, anchored. When her eyes lifted from the chart to my bruise, something shifted. The clipboard lowered. "What happened to you?" she asked. I walked into a cabinet. I said automatically. Tessa didn't buy it. "Try again." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. For 27 years, silence had been safer. But everything inside me was cracked open from the morning, and the truth spilled out in broken pieces. My brother needed a ride to the airport. I whispered. I told him no. For the first time, he hit me. Tessa listened without interrupting. No gasps, no pitying sounds. Just steady attention, The kind that makes your chest hurt because you are not used to being heard. And your parents? She asked. They said his future mattered. Mine didn't. The words tasted metallic, like blood. Tessa set the clipboard aside entirely. You are not going back there tonight. I shook my head. I don't have anywhere else. You do now, she said. We work with a medical safe housing program in East Boulder. It's meant for patients who need distance from unsafe environments. I'll take you there myself after the biopsy. My throat tightened. I don't want to be a problem. You're not a problem, she said. You're a person who needs care. The biopsy was quick numbing, pressure. Then a small bandage under my jaw. I kept my hands folded tightly in my lap, afraid they would shake. We'll have results in about a week, Tessa said. But before we handle anything medical, I need to ask one more thing. Are you safe if you leave this building alone? No. That one word changed the power between us. I wasn't the invisible girl from Pine Ridge anymore. I was someone she had chosen to help. Tessa placed her hand over mine, gentle but decisive. Then, let's go. I've seen what happens when people return after the first hit. We're not letting that be your story. For the first time in my life, someone said we and meant me. The safe housing apartment in East Boulder was small, quiet, and clean. 3 things my life had never been at once. Tessa helped me inside, set my backpack down, and handed me a glass of water before opening her laptop at the small kitchen table. I just need to finish your intake paperwork, she said. Insurance information, emergency contacts, all of that. Emergency contacts. The bruise on my cheek throbbed. I slid my wallet across the table, my fingers stiff. Tessa pulled out my insurance card, then paused when she saw the stack behind it. Cassidy, how many credit cards do you have? 2. My voice cracked. Just 2. She held up a handful. There are 12 cards here. I stared. The colors blurred. Some of the cards had my name embossed. Others had my name printed flat, like they'd been rushed. I didn't recognize most of them. That can't be right, I said. I never opened those. Tessa didn't panic. She didn't even look surprised, just concerned in a way that grounded me. I'm going to request an insurance-linked credit report. It is standard protocol when fraud is suspected. I nodded, numb. She typed quickly, logged into a secure portal, and entered my information. When the loading symbol spun across the screen, my stomach twisted so tightly I had to grip the edge of the table. The report appeared in a clean, emotionless list. 12 open credit lines, 31 months of activity, every card maxed. Tessa inhaled softly. Cassidy, the total unsecured debt is $184,977. The room tilted. There have to be mistakes, I whispered. I didn't spend that. I couldn't have. But Tessa scrolled, and the truth unfolded in cold, deliberate lines. Hotel charges in Phoenix, Irvine, and Houston, dates that aligned with every tournament Ryder attended. Payments to a Scottsdale performance lab flagged in 2 federal investigations for selling steroid blends to minor league hopefuls. Charges for radar guns, pitching trackers, recovery boots, private coaches, travel fees, charter vans. Every application listed my full legal name, my social security number, and my parents' home address in Pine Ridge. One card even listed an authorized user, Ryder Wynn. My breathing went thin. Tessa's voice softened, but her eyes were fierce. They have been using your identity for years. Cassidy, this is not simple theft. This is deliberate fraud. My parents must have. They wouldn't. But the denial cracked under its own weight. I saw Ryder bragging about new gear I never understood how they afforded. I saw Mom pressing receipts into my hand, saying, "Your brother's future requires sacrifice." I saw Dad dismissing my concerns with, "Be useful. Cassidy, don't make this difficult." Tessa turned the laptop toward me fully. They built his entire career on your credit. I gripped the table harder. I was working double shifts. I was saving. I thought I was finally getting ahead. You were never even on the starting line, she said quietly. Something inside me, some part that had been stretched thin for years, finally tore. Tessa closed the laptop. You are not alone anymore. But you need to understand what this means. I forced myself to meet her eyes. She said it plainly. The truth no one in my family would ever admit. They stole your future to pay for his. 6 days after the biopsy, I woke to my phone vibrating across the nightstand like it was trying to escape. Dozens of notifications stacked over each other, group chats I had been dragged into years ago. Numbers I didn't recognize. Even old classmates I hadn't spoken to since high school. Tessa knocked gently on the doorframe. Everything okay? I stared at the screen. Something's happening with Ryder. I tapped the first message, a screenshot of a travel ball parent's Facebook rant. Top West pulled him off the mound. Random testing. Officials from an independent lab were there. Another text came in instantly. Cass. Is it true he tested positive? Videos followed grainy clips recorded from the stands. Ryder being escorted by 2 men in navy polos toward a medical tent. Ryder's coach arguing with someone off camera. Whispered commentary spreading like wildfire. Tessa sat across from me. Cassidy. Breathe. But the messages kept coming. A tweet from a scouting account, preliminary results show 3 banned compounds. T and E ratio flagged over 180. A link to a baseball forum. A full thread dissecting Ryder's velocity jump from 16 to 19. Then Mom's texts started. 41 messages in 10 minutes. You did this. Your brother's crying. You are responsible. Call us now. Dad sent one long voicemail, his voice raw with fury. You ruined him. You think you're better than us? You think your little doctor appointment mattered more than your own family? I swear. Cassidy, if he loses everything, it's on you. I put the phone down. My hands shook. Tessa spoke softly. None of that is your doing. But the messages kept rolling in, photos of Ryder's name removed from leaderboards. Reposts of an official announcement banning him from all future Top West events. Someone had stitched together before and after images. Ryder at 16. Thin and hopeful. Ryder at 19. Veins bulging across his neck. Then Ryder himself texted, Cass, please, help me fix this. They're going to take my offers. Say something. Anything. When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. You owe me. You knew how much pressure I was under. If my career dies, that's on you. A final message. I didn't mean to hit you, but you made me do it. I blocked his number. Tessa exhaled. Long and slow. What do you want to do? I want silence, I said, and I meant it. I powered the phone off, set it face down on the table, and felt something inside me settle, not peace exactly, but the beginning of distance. The golden child had finally fallen, and for the first time in my life, I was not the one holding him up. For 30 days, I did not answer a single call from Pine Ridge, not one message, not one apology that never came. The safe housing apartment stayed quiet except for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional check-in from the staff. Silence had stopped feeling like loneliness. It felt like armor. One evening, Tessa brought takeout and sat across from me at the small table. How are you holding up? I poked at the noodles. Everything's loud inside my head, but outside, finally quiet. She nodded. Quiet is good, but quiet doesn't settle debt or protect you if they try to do more. I swallowed hard. There's more they could do. Tessa folded her hands. Cassidy, identity theft on this scale rarely stays contained. You need someone who understands financial crime, like a lawyer. I said, yes, a serious one. The idea scared me more than the slap ever had. What if this blows up everything it already did? She said gently. Now you get to decide what happens next." Her words stayed with me long after she left. The next morning, I sat in bed staring at the folder of credit reports and forged applications. Every document felt like proof that my life had been used like a tool, something to be taken apart, drained, and set aside. I powered my phone back on, but only long enough to search one name: Joel Callahan, financial crimes attorney, Denver. His receptionist answered on the second ring. "He can see you today at 3 if you can make it." "I'll be there," I said before fear could talk me out of it. When I walked into Joel's office that afternoon, he looked nothing like the lawyers in movies. No slick hair or expensive suit, just a steady-eyed man in his 50s with worn sleeves and a quiet confidence. He gestured to the chair. "Tell me everything." I opened the binder and pushed it toward him. My family used my identity to build my brother's baseball career. 12 cards. Almost $185,000, all in my name. Joel flipped through the pages slowly. No shock, no pity, just calculation. "This isn't family drama," he said. "This is federal." I felt my pulse in my throat. "What happens if we pursue it?" His eyes met mine. "We don't pursue it. We enforce it. And when we do, they won't be able to touch you again." For the first time, silence stopped being armor. It became a weapon. 6 weeks after I first walked into Joel Callahan's office, he called me with a tone that made my stomach drop. "We're moving," he said. "The agencies have what they need." I gripped the phone tighter. All of them: Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation, Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States Postal Inspection Service, and the United States Attorney's Office. They coordinated. A pause. "Be ready. Arrests usually happen fast." Fast came sooner than I expected. I was eating lunch with Tessa in the safe housing kitchen when my new phone buzzed with a breaking news alert. I clicked it, and my fork slipped from my hand. A photo filled the screen: Dad Harlan Wynn spread against the dusty hood of his own pickup in a half-built subdivision in Castle Pines. His hard hat lay in the dirt. 2 federal agents in navy jackets held his arms behind his back. Construction workers stood frozen with rebar in their hands. Tessa leaned in. "Cassidy? Is that him?" I nodded, unable to speak. The headline read, "Colorado contractor arrested in identity theft and financial fraud case involving his daughter." My phone lit again. Another alert. Mom this time, Marlene Wynn, being led across a grocery store parking lot, still holding a bag of produce. Her face was blotchy, her eyes wide with disbelief as agents secured her wrists. Tessa whispered, "It's happening." The third alert hit harder than the first 2 combined. Ryder. A shaky cell phone video from Pine Ridge Park showed him mid-throw, surrounded by teenagers filming. Federal marshals walked up behind him. One said his name. Ryder turned, confused, then panicked as they took his phone, his backpack, even the battered glove he never went anywhere without. A voice behind the camera muttered, "Dude, he's getting arrested." Another guess that explains the test results. My breath came shallow, not from guilt, just from the sheer weight of everything spiraling into place. Tessa touched my arm. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." I answered, but I didn't look away. That evening, Joel called again. His voice carried a quiet satisfaction, not gloating, not triumphant, just resolute. "Charges have been filed," he said. "Harlan has 12 federal counts. Marlene has 8. Ryder has 4. 4, I repeated. "He benefited from the fraud," Joel explained, "and he was listed as an authorized user on 2 of the cards. That alone implicates him in the scheme." I swallowed. "What happens now?" "They will face arraignment, bail hearings, and then sentencing after a plea or trial. Given the evidence." He paused. "Cassidy, this is the first time in a long time that you are legally protected from them." Protected, a word I had never associated with my family. Joel exhaled. "You did the right thing." I almost told him I wasn't sure. But the truth settled deeper than doubt. I had spent my entire life losing pieces of myself so Ryder could shine, so my parents could worship the image they built of him, so everyone but me could feel important. Now, for once, the cost was theirs, not mine, and I was finally out of reach. 14 months after the arrests, I walked into the federal courthouse in Denver wearing a plain black blazer and my hair pulled tight. I chose the last row on purpose. I did not want to be seen, only to witness the ending. When the deputy announced the defendants, the room shifted. Dad Harlan Wynn entered first, thinner than I had ever seen him. His jumpsuit hung loose on his frame. His hair, once dark and stubborn, had gone gray around the temples. He looked for familiar faces, scanning the gallery with frantic eyes. His gaze slid over me without stopping. I felt nothing. Mom Marlene walked in next, escorted by 2 marshals. An ankle monitor peeked above her shoe, half hidden by wide-legged trousers. She clutched a small rosary like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Ryder came last. He wore county-issued clothing and cheap plastic slides. His wrists were cuffed in front. He didn't look like the boy who once threw 90-mile fastballs under backyard stadium lights. He looked 19 and exhausted. The judge entered, and everyone rose. The prosecutor read through the plea agreements with a voice as flat as a ledger. Defendant Harlan Wynn pleads guilty to 6 federal counts of aggravated identity theft, wire fraud, and tax evasion. Recommended sentence, 126 months in federal custody, followed by 3 years of supervised release. The judge turned to Dad. Mr. Wynn, do you have anything to say before sentencing? He swallowed, trying to summon the charm he used to wrap around coaches and recruiters. I was trying to help my son, he said, voice cracking. I never meant to hurt my daughter. The judge cut him off. Intent does not erase impact. When she pronounced 126 months, Dad's knees buckled. Marshals grabbed his arms before he hit the floor. Mom let out a sound I had never heard from her, a strangled animal cry. The prosecutor continued. Defendant Marlene Wynn pleads guilty to conspiracy and misprision of felony. Recommended sentence 48 months probation, including 12 months of home confinement. Full restitution, jointly and severally. Mom whispered, "Please, please." But the judge did not soften. Then it was Ryder's turn. Defendant Ryder Wynn. Adjudication withheld. 2 years probation. Permanent ban from organized baseball at any level. Ryder didn't flinch. He just stared straight ahead, eyes empty, as if whatever part of him that cared had already fallen away months ago. The judge ordered the forfeiture of the Wynn home to satisfy restitution $184,977, the house, the pitching tunnel, the trophy room gone. As the marshals prepared to lead my family away, Mom's eyes swept the gallery. They found me. Her face collapsed. "Cassidy," she mouthed. I didn't nod. I didn't blink. I let the moment pass like her words meant nothing, because they finally did. 1 month after sentencing, the biopsy results finally came in. Tessa stood beside me in the small exam room, holding the printed report. "It's benign," she said. "A simple thyroid nodule. We can remove it. 40 minutes. Outpatient." Something inside me loosened, slow and shaky, like an old knot finally giving way. I nodded. "Let's do it." The surgery was quick, exactly as she promised. When I woke, my throat felt tight, but the fear that had lived there for almost a year was gone. Tessa adjusted the blanket around me and smiled. "That little line under your jaw. Think of it as a marker," she said. "The point where everything started turning." I whispered, "Thank you." She squeezed my hand. "Thank yourself. You chose to stay alive." 2 months later, I bought a small 1940s bungalow in Lyons, dark green siding, a porch big enough for a chair, a backyard with actual silence. I slept on the floor that first night. No furniture yet, and the quiet didn't scare me the way it used to. One Saturday, I took the long route toward town for coffee, and without meaning to, I passed Maple Ridge Lane. The house I grew up in stood at the end of the block, but everything around it felt different. A bright red sold sign leaned against the fence. A U-Haul sat open in the driveway. A young couple carried boxes through the doorway while their little girl chased bubbles across the dead patch where the pitching mound used to be. The tunnel was gone. The floodlights were gone. The kingdom was gone. I slowed the car. The woman looked up and waved the way Colorado neighbors do, easy, warm, without expectation. I lifted my hand back. That was all. No shaking, no memories trying to claw their way out. Just a moment passing like any other moment on any other ordinary street. As I merged back onto the main road, the mountains rose in front of me, steady and familiar. I let the window down, felt the cold air fill the car, and realized I was breathing without effort. If you've listened this far, if any part of my story has lived in your chest the way it lived in mine, I hope you stay with me for what comes next. There are more stories, some painful, some hopeful, but all true in the way survival is true. I drove toward town, toward my new life, and did not look back.